It had been abandoned for years. The house on the hill had sat empty, watching over the town below. No one dared to go near it. They said it was cursed. Some even said the house itself was alive. But to Rebecca, it was just another piece of local folklore. She was determined to prove everyone wrong. One rainy evening, she packed her bag and left her apartment. She wanted to be the one who finally discovered the truth. Rebecca drove through the empty streets. The fog rolled in thick, swirling around her car. The headlights barely pierced the mist. The town seemed so quiet, almost too quiet. As she neared the hill, the house appeared in the distance, dark and imposing, its windows staring back at her like eyes. She parked her car at the foot of the hill. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp and cold. Her breath fogged up in front of her as she stood, looking up at the house. Her heart raced. It seemed much bigger in person, more foreboding, but she wasn't afraid, not yet. Rebecca had read everything about the house, the rumors, the disappearances, the strange sounds people heard at night. But she didn't believe in ghosts. She stepped toward the front gate. It was rusted, barely hanging on its hinges. She pushed it open with a creak that echoed through the stillness. The house loomed ahead. Its windows were dark, like black holes. The door was slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Rebecca hesitated for only a moment. Then, with a deep breath, she walked inside. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet. The smell of mildew and wormwood filled the air. The silence was oppressive. She walked down the long hallway. Her footsteps echoed unnervingly loud in the stillness. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and dust coated everything. There was no furniture, no sign of life, just emptiness. At the end of the hallway was a staircase. It led up to the second floor, which was even darker than the first. Rebecca's curiosity got the better of her. She wanted to see everything. She climbed the stairs carefully, each step creaking beneath her weight. As she reached the top, the air grew colder. She paused. It was as if the temperature had dropped several degrees an instant. She shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her shoulders. In the second floor was just as empty as the first. There were no doors, only rooms with broken windows and rotten floorboards. But there was something strange about one room at the far end of the hallway. It was the only door that was still intact, and it was slightly open. She walked toward it, feeling an odd pull, as if something was waiting for her inside. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was small. The floor was covered in dust and old cobwebs, but there was something in the center of the room that caught her attention. A wooden shed sitting alone in the middle of the floor. It looked ancient, the wood warped and cracked. The seat was covered in dust, but it didn't look as old as everything else in the room. Rebecca felt a chill crawl down her spine. There was something wrong about the chair. She stepped closer. As she stood, she heard a faint whisper. It was so soft at first. She thought it was the wind, but then it came again louder. Rebecca. Her heart skipped a beat. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The voice was faint, but it was definitely there. Rebecca. Her eyes darted around the room, but there was no one there. She was alone. The voice continued, "Come closer." Rebecca didn't want to move, but something inside her told her to approach the chair. With a hesitant step, she walked toward it. As she stood, the whispers grew louder, as if the room itself was speaking to her. "Sit down." She stopped just in front of the chair. It was as if the room was alive, and the chair was its heart. Rebecca looked down at it. Her hand reached out to touch the armrest. As her fingers made contact, the room suddenly went cold. The air thickened, the whispers stopped, and everything was silent. Too silent. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and then, as if on cue, the floor beneath her feet creaked. The chair moved. It wasn't a large movement, but it was enough to send a wave of fear through Rebecca's body. The chair had shifted just slightly, as if something had sat in it. She stumbled backward. Then the whispering began again, but this time it wasn't just one voice, it was many voices, all speaking at once. "Leave now. Leave now." The sound was deafening. It felt like it was coming from the walls, the floor, the very air around her. Rebecca turned to run, but the door slammed shut in front of her with a loud bang. She screamed and tried to open it. She pushed with all her strength, but it was stuck locked. The voices grew louder, more desperate. "You should have never come." Rebecca was panicking now. She backed away from the door, her hands shaking. The room seemed to grow darker, the shadows stretching unnaturally long. She turned around, looked for another way out, but the window was sealed shut too. She was trapped. Suddenly, the floor beneath her feet gave way. The boards cracked and splintered. Rebecca gasped. As the floor dropped out from under her, she fell into the darkness below. Her scream echoed through the house. When she woke, it was dark. The only light came from a small small crack in the wall. She could barely make out her surroundings. The walls were damp, the air thick with the smell of earth. She was in a basement. Rebecca scrambled to her feet, her heart racing. She ran into the small window, but it was too high to reach. The walls were smooth with no way to climb. She could hear something moving in the shadows, shuffling, slow, steady. Then the whispering began again, but this time coming from everywhere. Behind her, beside her, above her. Rebecca. She spun around but saw something. The air grew colder. A shadow in the corner of the room moved. You shouldn't have come. The voice was cold and distant now. It was not whisper, it was a demand. Rebecca backed away, her heart bounding. The shadow in the corner began to take shape. It was a figure, tall, thin, dark. The figure stepped forward, and the room seems to grow darker still. Rebecca could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on her. The voice echoed in her mind. You belong here now. With that, Rebecca screams, and then the story ends. If you like this story, please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.